KBC studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Well, a very good morning. Welcome to another new month and another new week and another new day. My name is Jagana Semakola Ziksoka, thanking you and of course welcoming you to our Good Morning Uganda Extra this day. And this particular week, it is the 1st of February this year, 2021. A very good morning, Kampala. Good morning, Uganda. Good morning, everybody. And now to Good Morning Uganda Extra. Well, here is where we are, and of course looking at the Electoral Commission roadmap for 2020-2021. It's got only 1 day to go, and just after tomorrow we'll do the final lap of electoral process, and thereafter we'll only talk about by-elections, but elections shall be concluded and elections shall be done. Today we are witnessing and seeing the election of the regional youth members of parliament, those that are representing the 4 regions of Uganda. And of course after this today, then we of course have tomorrow as the final bit of it, and on Wednesday we'll go out to a vote for sub-county representatives, and we'll call it a process from the Electoral Commission. But from the politics and from the elections, joining me this morning in studios is Ndugu Julius Mukonda, the Executive Director from the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. You're very welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, a very good morning. Thank you so much for joining me. We've not met this year, I'm very sure.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. We've not met this year. This is the 32nd day of this year, 2021. Wonderful. Yes. And congratulations on having gone through the electoral processes and the campaigns. We went through that, and here is where we are. Now, let's get back to the issues that affect us. And this is now the National Budget Framework Paper for 2021. 2022. Starting with, what is here for Ugandans locally now from that particular process?
Yes, I mean the fact is that as people are going through the electoral process, there was also another process, which was called the budget process, that was going on. And the law requires, the PFMA requires that by the 31st of December, that the government should submit a national budget framework paper, a document that proposes, gives government proposals on how the next financial year budget is likely to look like.
Who was working on that, because everybody was into campaign at the time? In November, so by 31st of December, all ministers, members of parliament, everybody was looking for the vote.
But it's only one day. It's only the election day that is a public holiday. So all other days, all technocrats are supposed to be working. In fact, by 18th of December, the paper was laid before Parliament.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can see how the process actually can work, even despite already what is taking place. And this particular next financial year, we are so much interested, because we have not gone through COVID. It is still with us. Having lived with COVID for quite some time, and the floods and other disasters, we are so much interested to see how prepared are we this time around to ensure that we can mitigate this particular element. The budget is around at 45 trillion Ugandan shillings. It has slightly increased from the last financial year, but the revenue projections have also been reduced, because the economic activity, definitely because of COVID, has affected the way we are going to collect revenue. So we are around to collect like 21 trillion. The other important element that has taken place is that we've changed the way we have been budgeting in this country. Instead of budgeting for a sector, education sector, health sector, we have now gone through programs. And this is something that we have been advocating for, that instead of budgeting as 0 sectors, we should be a program to deliver on a particular area. So if, for example, we are going to deliver on education, we want children to study. Who is responsible? It's not only education. Health has a component, because they must make sure that children are provided the right medication, that the health system is working. Water must be there, sanitation in schools, and of course the teachers. But also parents must be educated.
Isn't that so strenuous? Because when you talk about particular individual projects, and those two micro in there, as opposed to budgeting for a sector.
No, a sector now is more. Now we have programs. So we have now 18 programs. So we have like a program on human development. Human development is now a program. And
that's according to NDP3?
According to NDP3.
Okay.
So I have a human development program that has got education, it has got health, and some component of community mobilization from the Ministry of Gender. So it's a nice thing to do, because now we will be delivering on one thing. We want our children to be educated, to pass. But education will be budgeting for the number of children to be enrolled in school. So now we are budgeting for the number of children to pass, the pass rates in this country. So to ensure that children pass, then it means that there must be this combination of other things that must contribute to ensure that our children pass. So that's where we are going, which is a very beautiful thing. It is of course, it brings a lot of challenges in terms of now reconfiguring how everybody is going to contribute a particular objective. And now we have already seen that Parliament is saying, no, we cannot be under governance and security. Jealous is saying, no, we cannot be under governance and security because we are independent. Nobody should decide for us. And I think they have a point. Probably that could be one of the things that an oversight that happened. But then for us, we are asking, Parliament, you passed this in DP3. Where were you? Why did you pass it the way it was? Why are you seeing it at this particular moment? That does think we can correct. So the budget, 45 trillion. But out of 45 trillion, close to 18, around 34% of that budget, we can't touch it. It is already committed, and it's committed in terms of debt payments.
Exactly, and that's where my biggest issue also is that our public debt, which seems to exponentially increase every other time, because whenever we get into these budget cycles, we find that there's something that we're grappling with, and we're not finding a solution to it in the near future, and that is our public debt. That is our public debt. And one of the things that we have been trying to look at in terms of our public debt is that the public debt is actually growing, and we have 56 trillion as of June 2020. But I want people to understand one of these things. When we are measuring our public debt sustainability, we are saying that when we don't hit a ratio of 50%, our debt to GDP ratio, when we are good in terms of sustainability, we can pay back. But we are forgetting other vulnerabilities. And vulnerabilities in terms of debt is that, and this is simple, is that if you are going to acquire a debt, you must also be knowing how you're going to pay it back. It's not about how rich you are, how many shoes, how many cars, how many houses. It's about also your cash flow. Because you are going to, and if you are not able to pay, you are able to sell those properties to be able to pay back, which is not good, because the debt is not meant for you to sell your assets. Debt is meant for you to add more on your assets. To grease the process, to grease what you are calling.
Yes, to grease the process, to help you in your cash flow. But when you find yourself that out of your cash flow you have 100 shillings, almost 34 shillings is now going to service that, and you're remaining with only around 60 something, then now there is a problem, because you are going to have less money to help you run your business properly. And this is what is happening. So that's one. Two is, if among your debt you call them creditors now, you are telling them, you say, today I'm supposed to pay you back today, but due to unforeseeable circumstances, let me pay you tomorrow. That makes a business, in a business it is okay. But if you had, if you owed me 100 shillings today, and tomorrow you are not going to pay me, and I say yes, so you pay interest rate, but now we roll over the 100 shillings to the next day. But when it reaches the next day, you say, I'm unable to pay. Let me roll it another day. That is where we get a problem. So we have what we call debt refinancing, and debt refinancing is now at 8 trillion. So we are saying that these are the vulnerabilities we see in debt management. And as such, we think there is only one thing we need to do as a country. We need to reduce our appetite to spend, so that we only spend on those areas that are critical, that can recover the economy very well, but also improve livelihood of our communities.
Okay. The issue here, for example, recently there was a report that actually pitched Uganda as one of the developing or the fastest growing economies. Even amidst COVID, amidst all the challenges that we have, now we look at looking at our data and all the things, what precipitated for this, and what actually causes this? Because to a lay person, it beats understanding that we are a country that is grappling with our public debt. We are a country that cannot finance our budget up to some good percentage. We are a country that is struggling with budget refinancing. But yet again, we are also talked about as one of the fastest growing on the continent and even in the world. How do you harmonize both positions?
Yes, it is true. We are actually one of the fastest, but one of the few African countries that are actually growing despite COVID-19 effects. We were supposed to go around 6.7%, and now they are telling us we have to go around like 2.1%. So it tells that we are growing despite the challenges. There are those that have contracted, they are in negatives, they are not growing at all. In fact, the global economy is saying that it has contracted by 4.3%. So why is this? I think that's something we need to answer. Number one is that manufacturing reduced growth. The service sector did not grow. The industry did not grow, but agriculture grew by 4.8%. Why is agriculture grew by 4.8%? Because God loves us so much that He gave us the rain.
It's natural endowment.
Natural endowment. Gave us the rain, and we were able to produce. But during COVID also, this period, there was so much money pumped in inputs, providing farmers with inputs so that they can be able to also grow. But the other important element we also need to understand is that in Uganda, 68% of our population is on subsistence agriculture. So whereas COVID came, some people still had enough food to eat. So they were able to eat, but also to sell in terms of surplus. So whether they are making profits or not, a farmer in Uganda will still grow food. So and that's why we are saying that if agriculture was able to be resilient, support our economy, our inflation could not go even up simply because there was a bumper harvest in agriculture. Means that just even having an extra cent in that sector strategically, and I'm using that strategically because in this country, our farmers, if you guarantee them one thing, Uganda, and say market, forget about your extension, forget about your inputs, forget about everything, the farmers will grow to fulfill that particular market. So giving agriculture 1.5 trillion is peanuts, is real peanuts.
1.5 trillion is what percentage?
Around 3.5% of the entire national budget is peanuts. Why would we penalize them because they are growing? That's how I look at it. So the country needs to, I think for me, the country needs to invest heavily in evacuating farmer produce. To evacuate farmer produce, you need your small and medium enterprises. Fund them, give them appropriate and give them affordable credit. If you tell people that go to UDB or have financed UDB, these small and medium enterprises don't need 100 million, 200 million. No, that is for the big boys and the girls. These guys need less than 50. To be able to buy 20 kilograms here, evacuate these small kilograms from different households and bring them to the bigger markets, the big boys and the big girls in the bigger market. Let us secure markets. Up to now, why would Kenya refuse to take our milk when we are actually importing so much of their products? Why do they not take our poultry products? But also I ask, what are our ambassadors in West Africa doing? Even across the region. In West Africa most especially. Most especially because we know we can provide. I also have a problem with them. Yeah, we can provide our products from there. So despite all of that, agriculture is still growing. So it would mean that just having that strategic intervention on marketing agricultural products, you've solved the problem of poverty in this country. You would not be even be talking about it because you would have, because most 68% of the population is there, and now they will be earning, which is very, very important, and that can help us even solve all these problems we are facing in this country.
So what is the national budget framework paper for 2021-2022 focusing on? Because we are going through a process, first of all, that has been ridden by the pandemic. We also now come up with another budget framework paper amid these elections, but also with the pandemic continuing and still with us. What are we focusing at in the coming financial year? Are we looking at putting more money for buying vaccines or producing our own drug, or because we need to sustain ourselves? We all need to be alive to be able to actually get into agriculture and do all these other things, infrastructure development. Where are we putting all our efforts to? In the midst, of course, of also now implementing the Third National Development Plan for its first year, and of course the SDGs also starting on them that other decade, and then of course this being its first year. Where are our priorities?
Our national budget framework paper, when you read it, is a fantastic document.
Like they've always been.
Very fantastic, and I can tell you, when you read it, you will know, yes, we are a forward-looking nation. We know our problems and we know how to solve them. We are talking about value addition, for example. We are talking about industrial parks. We are talking about capitalization of these banks. We are talking about infrastructure development, because we need to the evacuation I was telling you about. We are talking about energy, electricity. Despite having a surplus, we still have blackouts. Fantastic document. But I think the person who cast us in this country is around implementation. I think when we come to implementation, then things go the other way. Because now they are telling us that the compliance of a national budget framework paper to the NDP 3 targets is at 54.3%. Why would that happen when we know this is our plan, which we are supposed to implement, and then we are diverting from it? That's at the macro level. So now that begins to have a problem, that you have a nice plan, but when it comes to implementation, you don't want to implement it. And you ask something very interesting about COVID, financing for COVID. When COVID came, COVID is one subject matter I fully supported for supplementary budget, because it was unavoidable. You couldn't say let's wait, no. It was unabsorbable, it requires a lot of money, the ministry could not have it. And it was unforeseeable, nobody expected it. So those 3 criteria really qualified COVID supplementary budgeting. But this financial year, it should not, because we know it. So I expected that the Ministry of Health I would have seen a COVID budget.
Haven't they done that?
We have a funding gap of 173 billion for the purchase of PPEs, for contact tracing, strengthening our referral system to manage these crises. So I'm wondering, if I can't budget for COVID now, what else am I budgeting for? Yes, I know we have other problems, malaria, HIV, and the rest of the thing. But I think for me, is strengthening our systems to deal with such a kind of crisis would be our first number priority. But I can tell you why it is not budgeted for. It is because when this budget is over, and the ministry comes up and say we are faced with a funding up of COVID, immediately we go to supplementary budgeting. It is easier to get a supplementary budget for that than these other usual stuff that we have been talking about. So I think for me, Parliament must put a foot on its ground and demand that bring COVID up front as a key priority in the Ministry of Health, so that we don't disorganize the budget process that is going to come up. And for me, that's my biggest element. The other issue I want done, I think, which is very important, is COVID taught us and said that we need to be more reliant. We cannot be more reliant if our small and medium enterprises are working. We need to see affordable credit for these small and medium enterprises. The interest rates are still very high, despite government Bank of Uganda intervention that they should be reduced. They reduced slightly at 19 point, and now we're at 19% on average. You can't get that 19% average interest rate and you give it to small and medium enterprises to go and do business. That's one way of telling them you are going to collapse in terms of your business. So those are 2 major areas, and that deals with improving incomes of the people, but also improving the quality of life of our fellow Ugandans. So those are some of the fundamental things that we need to look at. And the other part also is we need to save. We need to stop expenditure on items that are not bringing returns. We need more districts. Fine. Have them.
Exactly. Before you even get me there, we'll talk about the districts and how much goes into our local government structures and all the things. The other most important thing here is first and foremost, where are we going to get the money? Because I think that's very important. Where are we going to get the money? Before we talk about saving which money, paying all these things. Well, what plans do we have for, first of all, collecting and getting this money?
So you could have seen that revenue collection efforts during COVID actually
increased.
Increased. And the revenue body changed the strategy. Instead of hitting the target, they now said, no, you can't force blood out of a stone. So instead of hitting the target, work with the business to improve their productivity, help them to fire better, so that they can be able to. But also you can strengthen the linkages, the leakages. So that's why you see voluntary declarations. You know, you can say, you guys, I have not been paying, but I want to pay. Can you help me? Then they don't penalize you. In fact, for me, I wanted them to go further and they said, you know what? If you want us to forgive you of your taxes, please declare what you have. So that from there you will know, Jagan was supposed to have paid 20 million in taxes. The last financial year, he has not been able to pay. We'll forgive me, but from the beginning now, you are able to forecast and say, you are likely to give me my 20 million. That one can also work. But also we saw some innovations in the taxation system.
The first bit of it.
Yes. And that was a magic bullet for URA. Somebody was declaring a VAT return of 60 million. When they put there the stamp, the stamp, the
seal,
yes, the stamp from URA. They are able to find that you can actually, you should have been returning something like 180 million. So that
three times more than
others were even 10 times more than what you have been declaring. When they went for e-receipting with these supermarkets and the rest, wow, that really brought in a lot of resources. So those efforts of saying, please pay what you are required to pay proportionately. What you are, if you are saving at only 100 shillings, you pay this. You are saving 200 shillings. So that one has also helped the URA to change its image. That's the number one. But also to increase revenue returns. The only thing I think what we are still failing is that we are not covering. We are not going across the country, and I have a problem with the rental tax. That rental tax is mostly based in Kampala here, but also with very few divisions in Kampala. But rentals are everywhere. We have now six cities. I mean, all these urban centers have got rentals. So you need to invest, because when you invest in those in collecting rent, then you can get the return. In fact, this belief for me was saying that we should hire an international company to come and do rental tax. Hire district authorities to collect for you rental tax. I'm telling you, they will collect it and get their commission off. That's part of them generating resources, but also bring money to the treasury.
The other argument that will come there, of course, Ndugu Mukonda here, is that we will, of course, look at local governments, that this year the services come to the people, and you're just talking about it here. Use the district structure and structurally get you what you want to. But if you look at the policy also for our decentralization policy and everything therein, you'll notice that the budget for local administration has also been dropping steadily. And I think we now talk about just 9% from what used to be about 23 or 25%. And now just look at how much the experts now apportion to the local structures. Does it also help us achieve that particular, because there is a lot of money that can come from those structures that we need to have to recoup from there. We are focused to only the big taxpayers. The president during elections, during campaigns, was actually talking to us, MTN, Airtel, and you know, you could actually tell that it is going to say the following and stops there, because these are the biggest taxpayers. But we know that there are other people down there. Are you thinking about also now empowering the local structures by giving them some good money to be able to actually collect more money for us?
And I think rightly, how do we invest in our local government structures to be more productive, generate more income, which income we can tax, or business units, which business units we can collect revenue from? And I think that is the biggest challenge that we are facing, because as you rightly said, the budget for local governments
It's just dropping.
Is dropping. It was 4.1 trillion last year. It's coming to 3.7 trillion this particular financial year, despite local government numbers also increasing.
Exactly.
So, and let me tell you, the biggest percentage of even that money is for wage and non-wage. In fact, the study is saying us that less than 15% of the money we send to the district is actually going for development activities.
So 85% is
yes,
for wage and non-wage.
Some actually have 90% of their money. You find that they have no money for development component. So what do we need to do to make sure that these local government can be production centers? And I think that is very important. First and foremost is that these local governments, most of them are agriculture based. That's a fact. How then are we helping agriculture production? Because agriculture is not taking place in Kampala. Kampala is fed by these districts. How do I ensure that my farmers in Kabaale who are growing cabbages and monde have the right market, can actually process these cabbages and monde to add value to it so that they can have a better price? That's it. And of recent, I have seen our supermarkets, the shelf stock of local products increasing. An idea which tells you that if you can help local governments to add value to their raw materials, you have, instead of bringing a pumpkin to the market, process this pumpkin and get pumpkin powder, pumpkin seeds. You're adding value to that. Tomatoes, let's have tomato paste. I enjoy banana juice, for example. I mean, instead of add value to it so that at least it can go through the system. Then you have production centers that are providing employment. That's number one, but also providing income to the villages. They are evaluating the products, and now you can begin to say, let us share on your profits in terms of taxes. That is a strategy that we need at this particular moment. So government must invest in the production of these units, because we know Bundubuju is good in cocoa. What are we trying to do to ensure that instead of exporting cocoa beans, we are exporting cocoa powder? Because that's the value addition you are adding to cocoa. Why can't we show that instead of exporting hide, and I'm glad now that we are taxing export of hides, because we just send the raw material. Why can't we add value to it so that at least we know we're fetching better markets, but also URA now can even get some more money to it? So you see, it's a question of that you must invest in something in order to bring returns. And I think that's what is supposed to be done. And for me, if you do that for local governments, let me tell you, you have a vibrant nation. Look at the milk. Why, for heaven's sake, do we pour milk at a high production season? Farmers in Western Uganda pour milk because they have nowhere to sell it. It shouldn't happen. Why? Because we should want to invest in the processing of milk for long life shelf. For example, turn it into powder. But these private companies are facing challenges with the markets. So you see that you really need to have government intervention, and I'm glad in NDP3 we are seeing government coming back to take its position. Not only just sit back and say for us we shall only regulate, but also
government is coming back.
Oh, it's coming back. It's coming back. But also to say where there is a problem, government is going to intervene. Build the silos, these food storages, so that farmers can bring their food storages there. Provide direct inputs to this farmers and better inputs so that they can get better varieties. So I'm glad we are seeing government actually now coming up and say, okay, I think the other fear of our economy is private sector led. Our private sector must be very weak. As we are supporting them, we should also be prepared to take part in engaging in business.
In quite a number of years, we've seen President Museveni's government put a lot of effort on infrastructure development, and I think we've really made strides. We've built roads, we've built dams, we've built many of these multi-billion, multi-trillion infrastructure developments. Are we still carrying on with the same? Did you advise now, you as the budget experts, or you think we should now focus differently and prioritize other things? For example, when you talk about roads, I am very sure that in Uganda today you can raise away from Tisoro and just go up to maybe Moroto on road. On
Koboko.
Koboko, you can actually cross to Koboko. You can cross from Rwanda and you just cross to Sudan. No,
Yes,
on road,
yes,
you know,
one
the
road,
tarmac all through and through. And do you think our effort should still be on the same? Or we now need to focus differently and say we now need to refocus our energies onto something now a little different, because we now have the dams with so much electricity actually that we can't consume it all, even when all of us don't use electricity. We have so many good roads now that many of us have even never driven on them or don't even drive on them, but they are here. Do we need to refocus?
Yes, I think it's time to refocus, not abandon the infrastructure agenda. No, not abandon the infrastructure agenda. We need to have the infrastructure agenda, but we can begin to sequence. So instead of having 5-6 roads to being done at the same time, instead of having to also to bring on the SGR, instead, you know, we can begin to say, okay, let us sequence. Let's finish 2-3 roads at a go, so that we can save money for 2 things: maintaining the old roads. I can tell you, my friend, if we don't maintain the existing roads, we'll come back to construct new ones. If a pothole appears on the main highway and you don't cover it for a year, you are likely to construct almost like half a kilometer, because the pothole is going to create 20 other more potholes. But if that year it appears and immediately you fix it, then that road is going to have its life shelf.
The cost of fixing it is much cheaper than waiting for the road to tear away.
Yes, because at this particular moment, and I think you rightly asked, maybe we need to shift. We need to shift by reducing on new road construction, spend more money in the maintenance of the roads, increase more money for community access roads, but also save money, and now we go to improving incomes of Ugandans and their livelihoods. So let's begin to spend money, serious money in education, more money in education. We need to spend money, more money in health. We need to digital transformation. It has got a budget of 102 billion, and I thought that was a joke, but actually it is.
102 billion?
I was asking myself, really, with what COVID has taught us, and with where we are and what we need as a nation, this would be our flagship program to help not only the farmers understand that there are markets in Uganda at this particular cost, to help not only the youth. I was amazed at how many youth in this country have become so creative with their phones. I mean, digital transformation, if we don't take it seriously, then we are going to remain behind as other countries are advancing. Now, all children are supposed to be on Zoom and study on Zoom like they were telling us. So you did now set to prioritize and say, okay, fine, we need to see more money in digital transformation. We need to see more money in government engaging in markets directly. You go to your counterpart and say, I have 1 million liters of milk, can I give them to you? This is the way it's supposed to go. I have 10 sacks of maize, can I bring them to you? This is how the market is going to, government to government. So that the government can give us quotas. You know, I'm giving you half ton a quota every year for you to fulfill. Fine. We come back and organize our farmers. And I have told you, even on this show, and I said, yes, we want to build vehicles, Chira Motors. It's okay. But we will never beat the Japanese in building vehicles.
But Benz.
We will never. If we will, it will take us 100 years to do that. But the Japanese and the Germans and everybody will never beat us in growing beans in this country. No, they will never. They will never beat us in growing watermelon, in growing agriculture. They will never. And as long as you don't see that advantage, and then you concentrate on, so we need some low-hanging fruits, and say these are low-hanging fruits, the things we can do easily, and invest them in that particular direction. So yes, we need to prioritize and set our priorities. But I think above all, we need to improve our capacity to implement some of the things that we do.
What's our implementation policy like? Because I think that there's also a mismatch here, that whenever you go or find out from the office of the Prime Minister about implementation, of course, these very good things, we have very good documents. When you read Vision 2040, when you read all these development plans that we've had to NDP3, when you look at our all these budget framework papers, like you say, they're actually very nice and good documents. But what's missing in our implementation policy that I think we need to do? Because at the end of the day, whatever we talk about, you as civil society organizations have your own concerns. I don't know whether your concerns are also being addressed, especially now when you talk about this national budget framework paper, for example, 2021-2022. What are your concerns as civil society organizations? And what do you think is lacking in our implementation policy that government needs to get there to actually see that when we decide and say, here is what we're going to do, then we can actually implement it to the letter?
Two things. Remove politics in implementation.
Is there politics in implementation?
Let me give you an example. You go to a district in eastern Uganda has refused to recruit district staff because their sons and daughters have not finished studying.
I normally hear about that thing, but
I thought it was a rumor until I met a cow who said, Julius, I've just come out of a disciplinary. The council has just disciplined me as to why I even advertised it without their consent. That is the level of political interference in the implementation
and the cow comes from the same district?
No, that's
from a different
because now cows were centralized, because also people are not appointing cows because they are not from the same district. At the end of the day, the cow is going to return back the money to the treasury. He has failed to recruit. That is the level of political interference in the implementation. So that district will not have a district engineer, so no roads. Will not have a water officer, no water. It will not have a financial officer, they are going to return back the money. That's the level of political
because the son is still in school.
Yeah, they are going to study. They will come back and occupy these places. So that's how it is. The other element is that discipline. We don't discipline people enough. But before you go to discipline is pay. Let me tell you, if these commissioners are driving these heavy vehicles with red number plates and how much of the money they pay them, you get shocked. If we don't do pay reform, there is no way a commissioner is going to sit, manage billions of money, and you're paying him 2.5 million per month. And he has to take, and we're Africans. You will not have a person with 2 children at home. If you have 2 children, you have other 3 from your brother and from your uncle who have taken care of, and you have to take them to school. On 2.5 million, you are joking. Why is it that these other agencies, who a driver is being paid 7 million? So, we need a pay reform to say, look, let us improve the pay for the civil servants, but also the last 3 is we are going to be strict. We told you to build this road for 2 years. Why has it taken 10 years to be built? Now we begin to come to targets, and that's why you asked me. Remember when we had the annual performance report of government for 2018-19 and 1920? A sector is given 90% of the resources to implement its targets, and comes back with 40% targets achieved. And you let that accounting officer go? No, please come back and explain. Who did you spend the money? You're supposed to have 20 targets. Out of 20, you come back with 4 or 5. So what happened? And you got all the money. In fact, I used to say it's because there is a lack of resources. No. This country has, yes, we don't have enough resources, but the resources we have should take us a step ahead. So if I give you money and you don't implement year 1, year 2, year 3, who's there to follow it? I think it is now the people in charge of disciplinary. So those 3 elements can help us address the issue of implementation. Yes, there are certain areas where you find that there are challenges. I was told we have a transmission line where somebody says it's right of way. If you don't pay me $1 billion, forget about it. 4 years down the road, the line is stuck.
They've not paid this $1 billion.
They have not paid.
There is no project working. There is no progress.
And there is no progress on the project. A project of almost hundreds of billions. So, and then, but you ask yourself, surely should this be a problem? If the problem is about right of way of government, let's go to Parliament, deal with that. Because one thing I know that could be done, for example, is to say, you want $1 billion, government is agreeing on 500 million, for example. Get that money, go to court, an arbitration in court, and say, he wants $1 billion, but we have 500 billion, start the court process, but put the 5 billion on the account and let the project move. Because in any case, whatever happens, the project was designed to pass there.
So with the time limit, actually.
With the time limit, you can't divert the project. But also, this is going to stop speculation. As of now, I know people who have the master plan of this country. They know where major highways are going to start coming up, and they are building their structures. So they know where the road is coming. They say, oh, the structure here, I need $1 trillion out of it. Do you know we need almost $1 trillion to compensate people for the Jinja-Kampala Express Highway? It's madness, simply because of speculation. So we need to remove speculation. We know that government, sometimes, yes, there are those cases where government has not paid people, but I think we can have a transparent way of compensating people for the right of way of our project, and the projects can continue.
Okay. How about the current budget? Because look at the numbers, for example, now that the numbers have risen from what it was before. Go to Parliament, for example, you now have 530 people in Parliament. We don't know what the next Parliament will have, but that's where we are. We talk about now the discussion in the discussion space is about the cars. And everybody thinking if you're going to buy them a car worth 300 million shillings and you're going to buy 530 cars at that much, we're grappling with paying our debt, but also looking at how we're going to do all the things, plus now the salaries and quite a number of things. Let's talk about our current budget vis-a-vis the collections, the revenue collections, and the other developments and the services that we want to give to the people.
We are going to spend 54% of our entire budget on recurrent, on wage and non-wage.
So the biggest chunk of our budget goes into
into consumptive expenditures, into entertainment, into corporate wear, into travel abroad, into advertising, all those sorts of things. And of course, the issue of Parliament has come in, and I think probably we are trying to be diverted from the major issue of government consumption expenditure. I mean, and that's what I was telling you about, is that this is the time to tighten our belts. What are those things we should not be able to do, we should not do now to be able to look, to invest in the areas that can get us a return back to normality, especially on businesses, but also in other sectors. So if you are spending half of your entire budget on consumptive expenditure, so where is your development? I mean, therefore you are not putting emphasis on your development. So you will end up not getting returns, so you start borrowing more money. So why would you borrow money, for heaven's sake, to buy MPs' vehicles? Why would you want to borrow money to start a new district? You should borrow money to construct a factory. You should borrow money to construct a road, construct a hospital, borrow money to improve the education system. I mean, these are the things you should be borrowing money for. But you can't borrow money that you want to
start a district.
Start a district.
And give so many people jobs.
And give so many. I have a small town council in my place, and they need 56 employees. I was like, really? 56?
In one district?
So it's just small, just a small thing. It's covered in a small village. So that's where our money is going, and we need to see that we reduce consumptive, especially that we're not collecting enough. So you see, you can afford to live a luxury life if you are a rich person and you are generating money. But when things hit hard, you bring back the family and say, family, do you know what? No more ice cream, no more KFC, no more outings, because otherwise, if you maintain that, then I will be coming to you, can you borrow me money? Will KFC, going to KFC bring you a return? Will the vacation bring you a return? I should actually go to you and say I need money so that I can start a new project that is going to generate money for me to do those other stuff. So let us treat national treasury as an investment for the nation, but not treat national treasury as a pocket change for a few individuals. So and for me that's where, so we need to do that. It is very painful, but we need to do it. Like rationalizing all these sectors. We know that rationalization, once you do it the way government had promised to do it, you can save $1 trillion. Nobody wants to start it. Why would you want to have a Uganda national, the Teacher Service Commission, Public Service Commission, Health Service Commission? These guys, whom are they recruiting? And they are recruiting for who? And where are they getting the money? They are getting money from the Constituted Fund. They are recruiting Ugandans for delivering services. So what we need to do is bring these things together, have one commission, give them a department for recruiting teachers.
As opposed to having the multiple service commissions.
Oh, they have a board, they have cars, they have their own votes, for heaven's sake. So that's a huge consumption exercise.
There are different EDs and
different EDs and their personal, their rules. So when you bring all these together, let me tell you.
Into one service commission.
Into one public service commission. The prisons have a commission, the military has a commission, the police has a commission.
Health, education, judiciary.
It's judicial service commission, and you do ask yourself, okay, if it's about expertise, bring the expertise into the commission. Okay, have a department for health service commission, period, and you would have finished that.
In one big commission.
Each district has what a district service commission.
Times 146.
So these are expenses that as government, they immediately, and I think for me, we are trying to do around what the new government, the challenges the new government is going to face and how to address them. Because if you don't address that, there is no money. The treasury can get empty. That place, it can get empty. Because it's about collecting and spending. If you are spending more than what you are collecting, you get empty.
Finally, Ndugu Julius Mukunda, the CEO of CSBAG, is our economy resilient enough to manage and to absorb these shocks?
Considering that we are still alive, let me tell you. Because when you see numbers out of this country, it is very scaring. Considering that we are still alive, we are a resilient people. And I remember I said that we are resilient people. Considering that we are still feeding ourselves, I'm telling you, we are a resilient country. So even when you cut off, we can invest in agriculture and still become more resilient. But we can do better, and I think that's something that we need to do. But I know we can do better. Definitely, I know we can do better if we put right resources. The NDP was telling us that they are looking at 2.5 million jobs, for example, in the whole NDP, and they are looking at trade as one of the key components that is going to bring more jobs, followed by agriculture and others. Put money in trade. Put money in trade. Facilitate trade in this country, even in town, by the way.
Because the budget of 2020-2021 talks about, I think, only about 198 billion.
So
for that.
So just imagine that. So encourage people to drink banana juice. Encourage people to drink bushera. Encourage people which are on the supermarket shelf, by the way, because somebody has gone there, done has his formula, approved the NBS and the NDA, and everything is on the shelf. Let us also let us promote people in this country. Instead of getting a foreign company to come here and they give us peanuts, let us promote people in this country. We would be a good country, we would move on. Let us say each and every child is going to start drinking half a liter of milk every today, and tell me whether the farmers will start pouring milk in the areas. No. We would even want more milk to encourage farmers to start producing, to go in the dairy industry. And that's one thing you can just say, children are going to start drinking a cup of milk every day. You are dealing with nutrition in this country. You are going to improve performance of children in primary schools, but you are going to bring pockets. We are going to bring money in the pockets of the farmers who have their industry. So these are things that we need to do. Once you do that, and then rocket science, move on.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Ndugu Julius Mukunda, the Executive Director from Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. Thank you so much for your analysis on the National Budget Framework, a paper for 2021-2022.
Yes.
Well, I'm only praying and hoping we are on the right path or the right track. But you said something that for as long as we're actually still surviving until today, then God is still for us.
God is still for us.
God is still for us. For God and my country, and I think we shall soldier on just like that. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we'll of the debate here, the discussion for this particular morning. We'll return tomorrow again with Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Jaganda Semakola Zuksoka. Stay blessed. Good morning and bye for today.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.